Hi, okay, we're going to continue our discussion about universal life now. And in this, we already mentioned a little bit about some features of UL. It is a permanent type of life insurance, such as whole life and T100. But the major difference here with UL life is that it has a lot of different options, flexibility, and we're going to talk about those in more detail. So this diagram simply shows that when you're paying a premium for the UL policy, it actually, a part of it goes towards the premium tax. And as you can see in this example policy, we have for John Doe, it's for $100,000 accidental death benefit, which we'll talk about in more detail, but this is a rider. It means it is an option. It's an extra feature which you pay extra for. Accidental death benefit means if the person dies due to an accident, the family will get $100,000 extra. That's in the case of an accident. The regular policy face amount is $100,000. So if an accident happens, then the death benefit will be $200,000. So in this policy, the male person is non-smoker, age 45. It's only on his life. So as you can see here, based on this, the company has calculated that the annual premium for this is going to be between two ranges. There's a minimum payment and there's a maximum. So the client can pay anything between the minimum up to the maximum. It really doesn't make too much sense for the client to pay only minimum because the minimum is just a, what do you call it, like you're not really using the policy for the purpose that it is created. You are only just using it for the purpose of just understanding that you have a policy and that's it. But it's like getting a smartphone and not using all the features of the smartphone. So if you're only going to be paying a minimum premium, not much or hardly anything will go into the investment portion. So it's usually advised, this is normally, we recommend the client to put 2 times minimum premium at least. So in that way, half of the money goes towards investments. But of course, client, if they have extra money, they can put up to the maximum. Extra money will go towards the investment portion, as we'll see here. Let's suppose we plan $2,557 is what the client's going to pay annually, as we see here. First thing is every year, whatever premium you're paying every year or every month, the government's going to take off their taxes, premium taxes, what we see here as the premium tax being taken off from that amount. Then the universal life cost of insurance, CUI stands for cost of insurance. That is the actual fee that the insurance company is charging for the UL policy, plus the admin fees. So as you can see here, we're going to minus the expenses and minus the mortality cost. The mortality cost is your cost of insurance. That is the chance that the person will die. The insurance company is collecting money for that purpose. So you're paying $947 in a year for that benefit or protection insurance. Then there's extra benefits and riders. One I just mentioned, the accidental death benefit, that is going to cost extra $284. Plus also there's here, we have waiver of premium. WP means waiver of premium. That is, if the person becomes disabled, then the insurance company will continue to pay the premium for the life insurance. So that is a waiver of premium. If the person gets disabled, the insurance company pays the $947 a year until the person goes back to work. For CI, that is critical illness also. In this, I just put as yes, that is the policy will pay out an extra amount from the policy as an advance from the actual policy if the person has a critical illness such as cancer, heart attack, stroke, or other coronary artery bypass surgery, other such type of illnesses which are defined in the policy. So anyways, for these 3 riders, which are called options, the client is paying $284 a year extra. So that is what we have seen here, minusing expenses, minusing mortality cost. The rest of the money goes into the investment account. So we mentioned in the beginning, as you remember, there is an investment account. So if you take 2,500 minus this, minus this, minus this, you're left with $1,275 in the year, at the end of the year, rather at the start of the year. and that money will be invested, and there's some returns. Let's suppose $73 is just an example illustration about how much money the client can get as an investment return. That is added to the net deposit, and in this way we are ending up with $1349 in the end of the year in the investment account. This continues every year. Client pays a premium minus the taxes, minus the cost of insurance, minus the riders. Again, $1275 goes into the investment account. And as you can see, this builds up. After 5 years, after 10 years, client may have like $16,000 in the investment account. So this is what we're talking about here. This is an extra benefit. And the profit and growth that the client is getting in the UL policy, it is not taxed. It's sort of like putting money into an RRSP or a tax-free savings account where the profit is not taxed by the government. So this is an extra benefit for having investments within the UL policy. And of course, the other benefit of this investment value is that the client can do a policy withdrawal if they need to take out $5,000, $10,000. If they have $16,000 there, they can do that, but there may be taxes. Policy loans are possible. They can take a loan against their investment value. They can do a partial surrender, meaning they can reduce the face amount and take out some of the investment money. So that's a partial surrender, etc. So as you can see, there's lots of benefits. And unfortunately, if and when the person dies, the family will get a death benefit. And that depends on what the policy is, whether it's just $100,000 or if it's accidental, the family will get $200,000. So this is how a UL policy works. Hopefully that makes it more clear. And the purpose of the UL policy is to understand overall the so different features of the UL policy. We mentioned about the premium tax, 2 to 4% is minus. Mortality costs, that depends on what is the cost of pure insurance, the cost of paying the death benefits. Admin expenses include cost of selling. They have to pay commissions to the insurance agent. Underwriting cost, that is the cost of evaluating an application for life insurance, issuing the policy, income taxes, cost of investigating claims. All these expenses are what indirectly the client is paying for. When you're paying your premium, part of your money goes into paying for those. And then the rest goes to investment account, and the growth, as I mentioned, is tax-free, and client decides where to invest, whether you want to put it into highly risky type of investments, maybe stocks, maybe mutual funds, medium risk, or you want to keep it into an interest-bearing account. That's possible also. So the timing and amount of premiums, minimum premium is not recommended, like I mentioned. The policy may lapse. If you're just going to put in only the $1,200 a year or $100 a month roughly, it's not going to be enough. And if the client stops paying the premium, they can do that. If there's cash value, it's possible to take the premium from the investment account, which is the non-forfeiture option. If the account value is not enough to keep the policy running, that is if it doesn't cover the cost of insurance, it could be because it's minimally funded, like we said, if the client is only putting in minimum amount, or the policyholder made withdrawals from the investment account, or the policyholder decreased or stopped the payments, or investment returns are really low. Because of these reasons, your account, investment account, may go down, and then there may not be enough money there to pay for the policy costs, and then it may lapse. Modal factor we mentioned in the case of UL is the same cost, whether you pay the premium annually or monthly. So the face amount we said can be increased, but if you want to increase it, it is flexible. You can do that, but there will be a medical, the insurance company will ask, why does this person want to increase their coverage now? Unless it's a guaranteed insurability rider. That is an option where the client can increase the face amount at a specified time in the policy and pay a higher premium and get more coverage without medical. So face amount can also be decreased, but the tax may be due, because if you're taking out money from the investment account, the government may charge you taxes because the CSV has to be reduced, because they have to, if you're reducing the coverage from $100,000 to $50,000, then your maximum amount that you put in is also going to decrease. And you will probably need to take out money from your investment account. And when you do that, then there may be taxes. Same thing with the UL, you can have a single or a joint, which is joint could be first to die or last to die. So same way in the case of the whole life. Pricing, so we'll talk about NAR in the next slides, but there's YRT and there's level cost of insurance. So this is how can you have the price of the insurance. Either you can have it fixed, like we just saw in the previous slide, this is fixed $947 every year. That is a level cost of insurance. The second option is YRT, yearly renewable term. In that case, the initial insurance cost will be low, $309, then $319, then $340, $370. So it will be lower, but it will increase over time. The benefit of this is that it's possible to accumulate higher amount of money in your investment account. So as we can see here, after 10 years, now there's $23,000 in the YRT for the same client, same amount of premium. In the case of level cost of insurance, there's $16,000. So the LLCOI is recommended for older clients and those who really don't care too much about the investment account. But if a person is younger, then it's good for them to have YRT. So that is the purpose of these two. The NAR we just mentioned, NAR is the net amount at risk. So in the NAR, you just have to think, like, what is the face value of the policy? Suppose it's $100,000. The cash value is the investment account value. Let's suppose it's $20,000. If the person dies, the family will get $100,000. Now that $100,000, where does it come from? You can think of it this way, that actually the insurance company is putting in $80,000 from their own pocket, and there's $20,000 from the cash value. So in this way, the client is getting $100,000. So the net amount at risk, think of it as how much money does the insurance company pay from its own pocket. So in this case, it obviously is 100,000 minus 20,000, it's 80,000. In the second case, same thing. If 25,000 is the cash value, client gets 250, so 225 is going to be our net amount at risk. In this example, the third one, it's a little different because now the family is going to get both the cash value and the face amount. So in that case, the family will get $325,000. And the net amount at risk is going to be, here we again, the same formula is used in death benefit. How much is the client's family going to get? They will get 325 minus 25,000, which is the cash value or investment account. And so 300,000 will be the net amount at risk. And this is the example in the book where 128,000 is the cash value. And so we minus it from the death benefit, and that gives us $372,000 as the net amount at risk. So that's the concept of net amount at risk. These are the different death benefit options. So usually more common is just a level amount. This is like whenever a person dies, the family will get the same amount, whether it's 300,000 anytime person dies in the first year, or after 20 years, the family gets the fixed amount. But it's also possible the account value will be increasing. It's possible if the account value increases over and above the face amount, then family will get a higher death benefit. So that is the level death benefit option. This is least expensive, most common, suitable for clients without an increasing insurance need. This one is if the client says, no, I want my family to get the net amount at risk, which is the like 300,000 plus whatever is in the account value. So this is suitable for those clients who have an increasing need and clients who deposit a large premium. For them, this is suitable. This is the most expensive option, where there is a death benefit plus cumulative premium. Whatever the client is putting in as premiums every year, that is adding up. And when the client dies, the family will get the face amount, plus they will also get the premiums. So that is this option here. And the fourth one is indexed death benefit. It depends on the inflation rate. This is suitable for tax liability and assets that appreciate in value. For them also, then this will give an increasing amount. So these both are for those who want increasing amount of coverage, and this is more for level. So next we talk about the investment components here, and so we will continue our discussion in the next section about this. I hope you find this useful for your understanding. No minimum amount, you don't have to take it out. It is a savings plan, but this is an income plan. And and it can also be that you can base the withdrawal based on not your own age, but spouse's age, if he or she is younger. So in this case, if Sarah is age 66, so we can base it off of her. And the formula, simply, if you don't know the formula for a qualifying RIF is RIF amount divided by 90 minus the age. So Sarah is 66 years old, so we do 90 minus 66 at the bottom, and the value of the investment is 190,000. If you calculate that, you will get 7,916,000. So that would be the withdrawal amount for age 66. So next account we're going to talk about is the TFSA. So remember, we just finished off with the RIF account, which is from RSP, that is your own money. You have to convert it to either a RIF account or get annuity or get cash. And that was one of the options. So another account is the tax-free savings account, the TFSA. With the TFSA, minimum age 18 can contribute to a TFSA, must be a Canadian resident. This was introduced in 2009. So you can, I mean, you don't need to memorize, but usually it's like $5,500 or $6,000 or $5,000 is the amount. 1 year was 10,000. So whatever the value is, you can add up the previous year's unused room to it, and also any withdrawals which were from previous year's withdrawals, those also are added to the amount. So in January of 2009, let's suppose a taxpayer put in $5,000 in stock in his TFSA. So he put in $5,000, it went up to $8,000. And so it's gone up $3,000. In 2010, he can put in, so sorry, we said it grew to $8,000. He withdrew it and he spent it. He took out $8,000. So in 2010, his room is $5,000 plus he can also add $8,000. Let's assume now last year he doesn't have any unused room. So he now, since he took out $8,000 previous year in 2009, so in 2010, he can redeposit it. So if you take out money from the TFSA, you cannot redeposit it in the same year. You have to wait till the next calendar year. So that is just because the government does not want you to take your money in the TFSA and just buy and sell, buy and sell. It should be one time like that. So now this room for this person would be $13,000 to put into the TFSA. In March 2009, his neighbor also does the same. He also had put in $5,000, but his stock went down to $2,000, and he took out $2,000 and spent it. So in 2010, his neighbor's room would be $5,000 and plus the $2,000 because that's the amount he withdrew. And so now his neighbor's room would be $7,000. So it depends on whatever amount you took out. You can add that as your room, additional room for next year. Okay, so we'll stop there and then we'll continue with the discussion about RESPs in our next video. Hi there. Yes, we're going to continue our discussion about accident and sickness, the LLQP exam. We're now on chapter 5, and this is for business insurance. And the purpose of business insurance, As you probably heard, there's regular casualty, property and casualty insurance for businesses. That is, if something happens to the building, something happens to their business, if a car, crashes into their business, that covers those type of problems for the business. The business insurance we're talking about is in the case of the owner or a key person or somebody becomes disabled, then in that case, then the business will have trouble, right? So we're going to be looking at that in more detail. So this here, we're looking at all these different types of business insurances in this section, which includes disability business overhead expense, which covers the essential expenses to keep the business afloat if the person who is running the business becomes disabled. Then we have disability buyout coverage, which is for partners. The partners who are running the business, they may possibly need to buy out each other's shares if one becomes disabled. So we'll talk about this in more detail in the coming slides. There's two types: entity purchase and cross purchase. Then there's a business loan protection, which obviously will cover the loan, the minimum payments for the loan or other expenses which will be required for the business to keep afloat. Then key person coverage. So key person coverage is also, for example, a chef in a restaurant. That's a key person. If that chef becomes sick or becomes disabled, then you're going to have trouble with the business. So it covers that person. Then we have these health and welfare trusts, employee health trusts, personal health spending plans. These are for the employees and also for the business owners, which will help keep it afloat. And then there's grouped DI, CI plans. Okay, so these we will talk about in detail. The risks for the owner are: there's a chance that the owner may have inability to work. If they are unable to work or their key person's unable to work, then they'll have trouble in the business. And the other risk is that they could have inability to sell the business. If the owner or the key person become disabled and then they want to sell the business, most probably the value of the business will go down. People who want to buy it, they're going to say, oh, your sales are not so good and I'm not going to pay you the full price. So it would be hard to identify potential buyers, some buyer who would be willing to take on a business that has financial trouble, that has sales down. It'll be hard to negotiate a fair price and ensuring the buyer has the required resources. So that's a risk for the company. Then there's a loss of a key person, like we said, a chef or somebody who's doing most of the sales for the company, or somebody who has a technical knowledge running the company, which are key. If they go away, then you'll have trouble with the company. So you can have a key person insurance. Then there could be prolonged disability concerns. So the key person or owner's absence results in devaluation of the business in this situation because of the prolonged disability concerns. So we need to understand the different types of accident insurance, the different types of business forms in Canada. There are three main types. One is the sole proprietorship. In the sole proprietorship, it means there's one owner, so only the owner and the business, they're the same. The one person running the business and their personal assets are mixed with the company assets. So that is a sole proprietorship. Then you have partnerships, where two or more people, they are investing in the business and they invest their time, they invest their effort, they have their shares in the business equal, usually sometimes 50-50, if they're both putting money or putting time into it. Then you have corporations, which are a separate legal entity. You can register a separate corporation. It can be federal or it can be provincially incorporated. And then either this company can issue shares on the stock market if it is public. If it is private, it only issues shares to their own family or to the friends. So the first one we'll talk about is the business overhead insurance. And the purpose of this is that it covers the essential business expenses while the owner is disabled. And if the owner becomes disabled, what it does is it qualifies the business to claim certain expenses. It's for single proprietorship. It also partnerships may use it also. The definition of disability in this is own occupation, meaning that the person, if they're unable to do their own occupation, they'll be covered for this. So this is very important to remember what qualifies for reimbursement. Think about it. If you have a shop, you need to pay these expenses regardless what happens. If you miss on it, you're going to be in trouble. Your business will be in trouble. The rent, that is essential. Property taxes must be paid to the government. Business income taxes must be paid. Utility bills, equipment and vehicle leases, those equipment and cars you're going to be using in the business. Employee salaries, you have to pay the employee salaries, phone and internet. And then loans. There's two payments for the loan. There's a principal payment and there's an interest payment. So only the interest portion, which is required, you have to pay it in order to keep the loan active, that is covered. And then legal and accounting fees. So these are all covered. What does not qualify for reimbursement? So this is important, that capital portion, so in other words, the principal portion, if you're paying a certain portion for the loan, two parts of it, we said interest portion is covered under the business overhead, but the principal of the capital is not covered. Any new capital expenditures, if you're planning on buying a new equipment, new machinery, you're planning on installing new software, new hardware, that is not covered. Salary of the disabled owner. So the owner themselves should have their own type of policy to cover their disability. This will not cover the salary for the disabled owner. And it will not cover for the owner's replacement either. Their spouse may be working in it or they hire somebody, their salary will not be covered. And they're not covered for salaries of employees who generate revenue. So some, like the salespeople, they will not be covered. And salary of family members who bought in after onset of DI, after the person becomes disabled, family members who bought this, who are going to work at the business, their salaries they're not covered. So the benefits, those previous ones, those expenses we mentioned, the rent, the utilities, the employee salaries, those are paid on a monthly basis based on reimbursement. So you have to submit the bills of what you paid, and then you are reimbursed for it. The waiting period could be 15 to 90 days. So a person becomes disabled, first 15 days or maybe up to 3 months, no payments, and then the payments start. The maximum, there will be a limit. For example, they could say it will be $6,000 per month for 24 months. And so if it is $6,000 per month for 24 months, that is just a guideline. Every month, the expenses may be less, maybe more. It's not going to be exactly $6,000 a month. So there is a carry-over feature. Some plans allow for unused amount to be carried over or to extend the benefit period. So if you claim less, if you claim 4,000 only, then 2,000 will be carried forward for the next month. And then if you have 8,000 expenses, you can claim 8,000 in the next year and next month. So that is a carryover provision. What are the provisions and exclusions? If there is waiver of premium, that will be there also. If the person becomes disabled, you don't have to pay the premium on the policy. There could be return of premium. If you don't claim, you get some money back from the premium. There could be FPO, future purchase option, where additional coverage is provided later on. If you say my expenses have increased now to 8,000, so you can have that under the FPO. Presumptive disability clause, if the person becomes presumptive disability is a critical, like somebody's actually becomes totally loses both legs or loses sight, then you're really presumed disabled, and then there's no waiting period. It starts right away. Partial disability clause is if you go back to work part-time, then you get some partial benefits, and residual benefits is based on loss of income. So the tax treatments are that the premiums are tax deductible. That is for the business. So the business is allowed to deduct the premiums as a tax expense. Proceeds are taxed as income. So the money they get will be taxed. So they will be able to so it'll be taxed as income. And the expenses are deductible by the business. So they get the payment and the payment is taxed, but the expenses, all the expenses, the employee salary, everything is deductible by the business. So it sort of offsets each other. So the next one we'll talk about is the business loan protection disability. And in here, we're talking about eligible loans, that is loans which are essential for the business. So these loans are going to be covered by the business. The interest on the loan must be tax deductible, so you need to pay the interest on it. And you can claim, as a business owner, you can claim the interest. So if you take a loan out and the money is used in the business, you can write off the interest on that loan as a business expense. So that's called, it is a tax deductible. The loan must be issued by a financial institution. It's not like your friend or somebody gave you the loan. It should be a qualified lender. The benefits for this may be up to 24 months. So the company will pay the minimum payment on the loan that could be for up to 24 months. The lump sum payouts for lengthy or permanent disabilities, it could be possible if it's a long-term disability, they may pay a lump sum amount. The premiums are not tax deductible in this case, so those are not going to be tax deductible. Next, we talk about the buy-sell agreements. The purpose of this agreement is that it provides the buyer or the owner. So we have two people, like two, for example, partners. They are going to be able to buy out each other. We already talked about, in life insurance, we talked about buy-sell agreements also. So this is the same thing. If you went through the life insurance section, there is buy-sell business insurance there also. It works the same way. Only thing here is based on disability. So based on disability, person becomes disabled. There's 2 or 3 partners. One partner will have the money paid, and they can use the money to buy the shares of the other person. So there are business owners, partners, or shareholders. It could also be for sole proprietors to allow a key person or employees to buy the business. That could also be possible. So what are the elements? What are the things in the agreement? You have to tell what is the trigger. Is it because of death or disability? Death, of course, is right away. And then after a couple weeks or months, it will start, but it will pay out. In disability, we define that if the person becomes disabled for 3 months or for 6 months, then there will be a trigger. At that time, then there will be a payment of the lump sum amount for the shares. So, and the current owner, they will be required to sell. So if the family wants to take over, if the son or the spouse wants to take over, or daughter, then you don't need this buy-sell agreement. And they will just take over the business. They will run the business in the place of the owner. But this is in case nobody in the family wants to run the business, then, and they want to sell the business, then this is suitable. And who is required to buy? The other partner or partners. They are required to buy the shares. And when does the purchase take place? Like we said, we need a trigger date. And how do you determine the value of the business? If the business is worth $1 million or 2 million or 4 million, how do you determine what is the value of the business? And how will the funding be provided? So the funding is usually through insurance. So these things have to be in the agreement. And the issues that need addressing include what is the fixed price and what formula are you using? How are you going to determine how are you going to determine what formula is used for the pricing? Are you going to use a third-party vendor or third-party person, a lawyer, accountant, or a business consultant? Are they going to be involved in this transaction or not? And the methods of funding, so how can you fund this? So one way is one person, they may have to sell their personal assets, or they may need to borrow the money from the bank, or there could be installment payments from the business profits to the family. But of course, here we're talking about the best way for funding is to have insurance, this buy-sell agreement on the disabled owner. So for the buy-sell agreements, there are 2 types of agreements. One is a cross-purchase and another is entity purchase. With the cross-purchase, you have 2 parties. You have the 2 shareholders. They are going to buy from the deceased or disabled parties. So both shareholders, they each contribute towards the insurance policy, and whichever becomes disabled first, the other will get the payment for the insurance. That is a cross-purchase agreement. Under the entity purchase, it's a share redemption. In this, the company is going to pay for the buy-sell agreement, and the company is going to be paid out of the insurance, and the company will then buy from the deceased or from the disabled family. So this is the entity purchase. Where the company is doing it is called share redemption. If there were 200 shares, in the case of the share redemption, 100 shares are canceled, and now there's only 100 shares left with the leftover business partner. So those are the types of agreements. If you want more detail, you can look in the life insurance section, and there we've spoken in detail about it. Then taxation, selling order may have to report a capital gain if the shares have gone up in value. Then when they sell the business, there would be taxation on the shares value also. So for the disability buyout insurance, the definition of disability is defined in the agreement. Usually it is own occupation, and there is a waiting period usually of 12, 18, sometimes 24 months before the payment is paid out. The benefit period may be 2 to 5 years or 10 years or to age 65. Usually that is normal with DI contracts. Remember, all disability policies, none will pay after age 65. It's considered you're retired now, you're not working, so disability will not pay for that. With the DI buyout contracts, the payout is lump sum and immediate. So that is one time. The coverage amount could be 50,000, 100,000, up to $2 million usually. And the features are, it is usually conditional, renewable, and non-cancelable. So that was the detail about the disability buyout insurance. Hopefully that is clear. And next we talk about the key employee or the key person insurance. So this is done in the case of, like, there's an owner, there's a manager, there's a technical expert, and that person may be critical for the business. So you have to deal with the financial impact to the business if that happens. Terms of the contract are the disability will be based on own occupation. That is, the person is unable to do their own business, own work, then they'll be covered, they'll be disabled technically. And the riders are, there usually waiver of premium on this, so that if the disability payout pays, you don't have to pay the premiums. The benefits are usually 100% of the salary. So if the key person's salary is, suppose, $80,000, $90,000, then this will pay 100% of that, or it could be about $15,000 per month. And so the company will get this payment if the key person becomes disabled. The company pays the premium, and so the tax treatment is that the premiums are not tax deductible by the policyholder. It's not a taxable benefit to the covered employee, and the benefits are tax-free for the employer. So when the employer gets the money from the insurance company, that money is tax-free. So there we have talked about the key person disability insurance. And next we're going to talk about the health and welfare trusts. So these are, again, for the business to keep the continuity there, there are different types of trusts. So this is a trusted agreement whereby employers provide health and dental benefits to the employees. So this is also to keep the business going. You want to have, the business should have some type of health and dental benefits for the employees. If you only have 20 employees, suppose, and half of them become sick, they have dental problem or they have health problems, it will affect the business also. So the contributions are made by the employer, and these contributions are tax deductible to the employer. The employee health trusts are another, it's a type of health welfare trust where you have also employees, they can get benefits through this for their medical expenses. And then the personal health spending plans, these are also like money accounts where the employer puts in money, for example, $200, $300. Once the employee reaches certain milestone, then the company puts money into it, and the employee can use that money for different reasons, like going to a gym. They can use it for other expenses, for children's, if they're going to do soccer, they can use it for that, for health benefits. Then there's group disability and critical illness plans. We already talked about these in group insurance. So you can take a look at those. These are helping to keep the business ongoing in case any of the employees become disabled. Then there's travel insurance. So this is primarily bought by people who are traveling outside of Canada for leisure purpose, for vacation, typically short term and not to live in what they're traveling to. So the exclusion would be for countries where the foreign affairs, as said, do not travel. Those countries which are dangerous, which are under the do not travel list or advisory, those will not be covered. We would also be concerned about repatriation benefits. So if a person becomes sick and they need to come back using air ambulance, that would be covered. Or if they need hospitalization, then also they'll be covered. Or if the person dies, to bring back the dead body. Or somebody needs to go there to be with them in the foreign country, that also would be covered. And so the need for travel insurance also is there if you're traveling to other provinces, because if you're living in Ontario, you're only covered in Ontario. So if you travel to another province, then you will not be covered for your health plan. So you may need to have travel insurance for that too. Then client profile. So that's the end of chapter 5 actually. Before we go on to chapter 6, I'm going to pause there, and then we will continue our discussion with chapter 6. Okay, have an excellent day and talk to you soon. Hi, this is the 4th module for the LLQP exam prep in Canada. This is ethics and professional practice. So in this module, we'll be talking a lot about ethics. That is, how should an insurance agent, how should they perform? How should they deal with the public? What they should be telling the public, what they should not be doing. So that is all a part of ethics. And professional practice is to understand the different companies, departments, organizations, different ways of actually doing the business. So that's what we'll talk about here. A lot of it is repeat. I would say there is a lot of repeat from the other 3 modules. So those where it's repeat, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And ethics has just 4 chapters in it. So the first chapter is about the legal framework to understand about overall the types of life insurance agents. So there's 2 main types. There are independent agents and there are captive agents. So by independent, we mean that you can sell insurance from 2 or more insurers. So you are basically a broker. You are an insurance broker. You have many different insurance companies and you can sell insurance from different companies select. But usually most brokers will deal with only 2 or 3 anyways, because it's not easy to understand all the products from all the companies. Usually the independent ones, they are more comfortable with a few of the insurers, and they work through MGAs, which are the managing general agents. Those are like brokerages, insurance brokerages. And then there are captive agents. They only are working with one insurer. For example, the insurance agents working with Sun Life, working with RBC or any other insurance company, they will be captive agents. So they are only dealing with those products of that company. So in the legal framework, you need to remember, of course, we said that insurance is regulated on the provincial level, and every province in Canada has its own regulatory organization. The legal things that you should understand here that they talk about are the aspect of capacity and status of people. So what do we mean by capacity? First of all, we mean that the person should be of legal age, and they should be in the good mind. They should understand what they're buying or what they're doing. So we'll talk about that in a little more detail later on. There should be natural person. By natural person, we mean that it is an individual. It is a human being. That's a natural person. And so the natural person is, a person who can actually work with. So we'll talk about this actually in more detail here in the next slides. What is a natural person? What is a partnership and legal person? Minors and guardians, power of attorneys, living will, marriage, divorce, wills, trusts, and bankruptcy. So these we will talk about in more detail in these next slides. So first of all, about the legal age. So when we're talking about capacity and status of persons, we mean what is the legal age? Anyone who is going to enter into a contract must be of legal age. For example, in Ontario, it's 18 years of age. In other provinces, it's a little different. It could be the same or different. Legal capacity means that you understand the contract and you have the positive mental capability. So they are of legal capacity. So in order to come into an insurance contract, you should have both legal age and be of legal capacity. So we said it could be a natural person, could be a partnership, could be a legal person. Natural person is a human being, a living person, and they are of legal age and legal capacity, as we mentioned above. They can enter into a contract for insurance. It could be a partnership, a company where there are two or more partners, and there's two types of partnerships. One is limited, another is general. A partner who is limited is only providing funding. He says, here's $100,000. Here, this is my contribution towards the business. If you are making money, please give me some profit. If not, then they lose their money. So that's a limited partner. The general is working in the company and also providing funding and other resources. So they can enter into insurance contract. Remember, there's buy-sell agreements where they can also act between each other, and in that way they can get insurance, crisscross insurance as a partner. The legal person, a corporation, is considered as a legal person. You can incorporate a company, and the company is considered as a separate legal entity. It has a signing officer or officers who are legally allowed to sign on behalf of the company. The company can buy property. The company can enter into contract. Company can be sued in court. So it's a separate legal entity. And this company could be for profit, could be charity, could be not for profit. So they can all enter into insurance contract. Then we talk about minors and guardians. There are minors under age 16. So they are, of course, children. Parents can apply for life insurance for the children, and the guardian must be designated. If there's no guardian, the benefit is paid to the court within 30 days. So it must be, of course, there must be a guardian. If the child is under 16 and they are going to get some money from insurance, the money has to be paid to a guardian or to the court. If they're age 16 and over, they are allowed to contract insurance on their own. They can get an insurance policy, but they can't be a beneficiary of a death benefit. So they are not able to get money directly still because they are not at the age of majority. So they can get a contract, but they cannot. So in other words, they can be owner, they can buy an insurance policy, and someone else may be the beneficiary, but they cannot be the beneficiary of the death benefit. In other words, they can't take out, for example, insurance on their parents that, God forbid, the parents die and they get the money. They can't do that. So age of majority is, like we mentioned already, it varies. It's like 18 in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, PEI, Quebec, and Saskatchewan. At that age, then it's a legal entity, legal autonomy. They can enter into the contract and they can get their own policy. They can be beneficiary. They can do whatever they want to as an adult. So next we'll talk about power of attorneys. The power of attorney must be original. It cannot be like copy. If it is a copy, it must be certified. And the agent cannot be a POA for a client. You cannot be acting as power of attorney for a client. Power of attorney gives you the authority to act on behalf of the other person, and you are allowed to make decisions for that person. It could be financial decisions, buying or selling property, buying or selling securities, buying or selling, getting into a contract. So power of attorney for insurance can basically do everything, but they cannot appoint a beneficiary. Everything else is okay. So they cannot say, oh, who's going to get the money in an insurance policy, but they can set up an insurance policy. They can, for the person, And so there's two types of power of attorney. One is a general and the other is the enduring. So the general, it ends if the person is mentally incompetent. Then it will end. So that is the general one. And the enduring one, it continues even if the person is mentally incompetent. It continues. So under the general, we have specific. So specific could be for a particular property. So I give you power of attorney, a general power of attorney for my property at ABC Main Street. So that is a specific type of POA. If it's for financial matters only, that also is specific. So it can be defined, or it could be a broad one. You can do everything. It basically covers everything. And the enduring one, we said, is going to continue even if the person is mentally incompetent. And it must state when the POA is active. It doesn't depend on the incapability of the person. So those are the concepts and understanding of what is a power of attorney in the concept of insurance only. Of course, there's other aspects of it also. Later on, we'll talk about in power of attorney. So under marriage and common law, there are different relationships that you need to be clear about. Of course, person can be married, and in this, if they're married, then there is a presumed division of property if the marriage breaks down. If two people are not married, they become separated or divorced. So then property would be divided. So if they're married, they may have a prenuptial. A prenuptial agreement is before marriage. They have an agreement about how property is going to be divided if they separate. So that is before the marriage. They're living together and they can have a prenuptial. And then they have a marriage contract after marriage. That will be the marriage contract. If they're not married, they're common law. So common law means that there's no presumed division of property. Under common law, the property is not divided. And under common law, there's no rights if the spouse dies without a will. So if one spouse dies and they don't have a will, the other spouse cannot claim any benefits or any property under common law. If they have a common law, they may have what is called a cohabitation agreement. In the marriage, it's called a marriage contract. In the common law, it's called a cohabitation agreement. That is, they're getting together, they're living together, and what do they agree on? Different things. And under common law, they can get spousal support, they can get pension support. So if they split up, they can get spousal support, but they don't have the right to the property division, like 50-50% as a married couple. And they can get also pension support. If one of them dies, they're entitled to around 60% of the pension of the common law person. So be sure you're clear about the difference between a married person and a common law person under Canadian law. And then, of course, there's a single person, and then there's divorced people. And divorced may have legal obligations. They may have to pay for spousal support or child support also. So those are the different relationships, those you should be aware of. Then we have a marriage and common law spouse. So this is common when you're selling life insurance, and you probably will have to deal with these, understanding them. So spouses usually they buy insurance to provide for the financial well-being, and of course legally they can be married, they can be common law, they can be same-gendered also. It's legal here in Canada. They might be required. So like we said about spousal support or child support, by law, the court usually will say that if there's a marriage breakdown and one spouse has to give the other spousal support or child support, then they also want life insurance to be there. So if the person dies after a year, 2 years, 5 years, then the children or the spouse will not be disadvantaged. So there usually will be a requirement for life insurance as a result of the breakdown. So there are issues which arise around values contained in the policy when there's a divorce or separation. So if there's in Quebec, except in Quebec, divorce has no effect on beneficiary designations. So if you have a policy, and if you have a policy and there's a division of relationship, you leave somebody and you must make the change in the beneficiary of the insurance policy. It's not automatic. It's not considered as if, oh, you broke up the relationship and now the beneficiary is automatically, it does not automatically change. You have to send in a new beneficiary form to the insurance company. Otherwise, the same one stays in the designation. In Quebec, where spouses is named as beneficiary, it is automatically irrevocable unless the owner otherwise indicates it. And divorce cancels that designation in Quebec only. So Quebec rules a little different, but rest of Canada, it's basically, it does not affect the beneficiary designations. Okay, next we're going to talk about wills, estates, and successions. And so under wills, all property is deemed disposed of by the person at death. So when a person dies, there will be, usually every person has a will, and it's considered when the person dies that all the property has been sold, although it's not sold, but it's considered as if it is sold. And this property, once it is sold, like rental property, principal residence, other, it flows into an estate account. Estate account is an account which is opened up in the bank, which will, all the assets are liquidated and put into the estate account. And then the money in the estate account is divided as per the will. In the will, it will say, I want my assets to be divided so and so. The instructions made by the testator, the testatrix, if it is a female, and carried out by the executor. So the person who is making the will is known as the testator, and the person who is executing it, who is making sure that the will is, the money is divided as per the will, is called the executor. You have to, when you write a will, you have to name also who is the executor. So joint tenancy, property, and life proceeds are dealt with outside the will. If you have a joint ownership of a property with a spouse, one spouse dies, the other spouse automatically gets ownership of that property. This includes joint bank accounts, and includes joint property with joint names on it, and other joint ownership items. So that you do not have to mention that in the will. Automatically, it's considered one person dies, the other gets full control of it in joint tenancy. If you don't have a will, it's known as dying intestate. It means you're dying without leaving a will, and the assets are distributed according to laws of intestee in your province. So each province has its own rules. If you do not make out a will, there's laws based on Ontario province, based on BC. Every province has its own rules, how the property will be divided with the spouse and the children, etc. Usually in Canadian law, parents do not get any rights for division of property. So you need to designate if you want it done differently, if you have other religious or other personal desires, you need to mention that in your will. Otherwise, the property is divided according to the laws of the state. Okay, I'll stop here and we'll continue with the next in the next meeting. Okay, thank you very much.